Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at yet another wonderful mod, this time in the form of Kerbal Cities Pack, which is being made by forum users AminKD, FastDayLaSpeed, and Jatwa. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is, well, as the name suggests, Kerbal Cities, though for right now it is only one city as this mod is in an early stage of development, but as time moves on, many more cities will be added into the world, but we'll talk about that more momentarily. For now though, let's take a look at our lovely new city, which is right over here. Ah, glorious, isn't it? All hidden from view and whatnot, but yes, there actually is a city right in here, quite a large one in fact. It basically goes from right at this point all the way down to the end of the runway. It's just that in this Kerbal Space Center view, it's not visible. Now, if we go to the runway, on the other hand, and load up a plane, we can actually see this city in all of its glory, and oh my, I do love it. So let's turn off the UI, and then pan dramatically over, and bam, there we go. Giant freaking city again, which stretches all the way back to the runway here, and, you know, goes all the way up to the Kerbal Space Center, and it is beautiful. Just look at that. Look at all those amazing buildings, all put together on a street system. And it is fairly impressive. Now, why I am so excited about this mod is, well, one, of course, I mean, who doesn't want cities in the game? That's just cool and fun. But, of course, we actually have already had mods attempt this in the past. But the big difference here is the scope. The mods in the past seem to have wanted to make everything unique and new and interesting, so every building on every block of every street corner was handmade. Whereas this mod, they're taking a different approach. They have taken a selection of buildings. As you can see here, we do have repetition in the buildings, but there's a pretty decent variety of different sizes and shapes of buildings. I mean, right here, you just have 4 different buildings right off the bat, just in that one little bit of street. And taking those and making them procedurally generate into a city that gives you this. And that is an interesting step, because it means that you can make more of these cities with less effort. Now, of course, it still does take a fair amount of effort to turn these things actually into a proper city once they are generated. I believe I saw in the forums that it takes per city about a day's worth of work to complete, which is a lot, but still, that's a lot better than if you made every one of these buildings by hand. And that's why I'm personally so excited about this mod, because I think it might finally be a city mod that will succeed. Hopefully. You mod makers better not disappoint me on this one. I want cities, damn it. I'm always so confused as to why this whole planet is just the only populated area is the Kerbal Space Center. But yes, that is besides the fact. Let's actually turn back on our UI momentarily as my plane does slowly drift down the runway and actually take to flight and get a beautiful overhead view of the place. And hopefully not crash in the process, though knowing my flying, we probably will crash in the process. Now let's just get a nice little turn over here, and there we go. We have all these lovely buildings, all very beautifully made and arranged on all of these streets. Now, I'll talk about a few little nitpicky things that I do have with some of the bits and bobs of this city, but overall, I think it's quite well done, very well put together, and frankly, if you're just trying to fly around the world, adds in a nice bit of extra scenery for you, even if it does have the repetitiveness of some of the buildings. Now, one of the first things I do want to point out that kind of bothers me, I love the texturing on these, but you'll notice certain buildings like that one, have the SpaceX logo on them, and I'm not entirely sure why they have the SpaceX logo, but they do. And I find that strange, that it's the only building with any sort of thing other than a stock paint job, which is one of the things I do want to point out right off the bat here. Well, actually, we've been at this for a few minutes, so that's really not right off the bat, but you'll notice the paint scheme of all these buildings is actually stock alike. And if you've watched my series for any length of time, you probably know I love things that are stock alike. It is my favorite thing for a Kerbal Space Program mod when it looks like it belongs. And if you look at these buildings compared to, say, you know, the space plane hangar over here, they use the same colors for the windows, the same colors and different shades of gray for the walls, etc. And it looks like it should be together, and I'm quite happy about that. Now, it looks a bit better when we're actually in the sun there and you can see the color differences, but overall, it's quite cool. Now, let's actually stop the aerial view because, well, that's not the best of views to have, so let's just crash and then load a quick save where I have, I believe, oh no, Jebediah died. Oh, yeah. While exploring this city with planes and cars, etc., I've lost about 10 Kerbals. You all know my horrible flying abilities and driving abilities in games, so they died for a cause, though. And let's just take a lovely ground view. Actually, before we do, we will be taking to the lovely streets, which you can see, for the most part, in this city, are pretty well connected. You have this street here, you can follow it all the way down, it branches off in a few areas, but overall, all, you know, keeps flowing from one street to another quite nicely. But then you have little bits like this right here, just an odd little bit of street that's out of place, and it bothers me. I hope that the mod makers do catch things like that in future iterations of the cities. Again, this is an early stage of development for this mod, so hopefully that, along with the weird ground texture, gets changed because it's just weird. Another thing that I hope they do take into account once we actually get into our car here, turn off my brakes, and go over this way, because it's the safest entry into the city. A big problem I've had with vehicles in this place is the curbs here have a tendency to destroy your wheels. They are very, very sharp, solid 90-degree angles for these curbs, and even though it's not very tall, I mean, look at that, that's just a little curb right there, it'll break your wheel. I've had a fair few problems with that, but nonetheless, just cruising down the street is quite cool, just so long as your wheels don't touch the curbs. So that's one thing. Perhaps they could angle that rather than it being a 90-degree angle there, because, well, yeah, broken wheels are not a good thing. Another oddity is that the actual ground seems to be a bit more slippery than your standard sort of area around the place. I've had a fair few issues of my vehicles sliding around a lot more than you would expect. It hasn't been too bad, you can just compensate by driving slowly, but overall it would be nice to say, I don't know exactly what they would have to do, but perhaps a material config or something to help it out. Oh god, don't hit the curb, don't hit the curb. There we go, we made it. But yeah, it's just a lovely city that you can drive around at your leisure, or of course, fly around and do fun little stunts and tricks. And there's all sorts of little details spread around. Like, we had a parking lot we did pass way back there, and now we've got some what are either very low-res parking meters or bollards in front of that building, and just, it's all nice, cool little touches. You got little bits of greenery between buildings that you can call a park, perhaps. And again, just the variety of the different buildings that we have, though still somewhat minimal, is quite impressive. I'm very happy with it. And actually, it's one thing that the mod maker is hoping that they might be able to get some more help with, is in the creation and design of new buildings to add in, because, well, it would be nice to have in a bit more variety. Just who wouldn't want that? Now, as for some of the other issues with this, now I haven't had it because I have a fairly decent computer, but if you're on a lower-end computer, you may actually suffer some performance issues. I mean, it's just the sheer fact that there's so many models with so many colliders and so many physics objects that are added into the game that you could have a few issues. For me, though, it's run perfectly smooth. I haven't had really any frame drops while going around the cities, even when flying through them, even when on fire after a crash. It's all gone quite well. But if you have a lower-end computer or an older computer, you may suffer a few issues here and there. Now, it does, of course, use Kerbal Construct to actually build the city, but it is not compatible with Kerbin Side. So if you do want to use Kerbin Side as well as this, you'll have to do some finicky things. But overall, those really seem to be the only problems. Now, what they hope to do for the future of this is they want to create about 20 different varieties of cities. So 20 different variants of different city designs, of different shapes, sizes, buildings, etc. And those 20 cities will be what is scattered around the world. So you'll have them in different locations. Now 20 may not sound like much, but considering each city will be no closer than 20 kilometers from one another, I think that spread that far out, you probably won't notice very much repetition in the design of cities as you're flying or driving around, so I think that should be suitable enough. Now, more may get added into the future, and again, he is looking for help with building modeling, so we might have a bit more variation there, which would be cool. Now, another potential thing that may come in the future, but this is definitely not set in stone, is they're hoping perhaps they can make this stuff destructible. They have no clue if they can, but if it's possible, they'd like to try and do it, because, well, I mean, come on, who wouldn't love to bomb one of these cities if you have, say, BD Armory installed? It would be pretty cool. And other than that, I mean, it's just a fun city to go around. So if you would like to check this out for yourself, you can take a look at the link in the description as always. And I would definitely say to give it a try. It is pretty cool. It's a city. Who wouldn't want a city in Kerbal Space Program to fly, drive, or walk around? It's just fun. And definitely go check it out, fly around, have some fun, and hopefully this mod will continue to develop into what I hope it will become, a network of cities all around the world to make this planet actually feel like it's lived in, rather than just having the Kerbal Space Center. But yeah, that's really gonna be it for this video today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. I know there hasn't been much to it, considering, I mean, what are you gonna do with the city? But I can offer you this at least. I did build a rocket for us to fly and get a better aerial view. Glorious, isn't it? Look at the beauty of this city. Look at it in all of its glory. And yes, I hope you have enjoyed this episode today, and of course, that you do come back for the next. But until that time, thank you for watching, my friends. And as always, have a good one.